Hello and welcome to everyone to the first virtual Menstrual Cup Coalition Summit. I'm Janie Hampton, one of the co-founders of the Menstrual Cup Coalition, and I'm in Oxford, England. We planned to meet up in Nairobi this month, but it had to be cancelled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As it happens, more people are able to attend than if we'd met in person, and it saved us all a lot in flights and accommodation, and also harmed the environment. Over 80 people have registered from all around the world to join us today. Please make sure your cameras and your sound are turned off. First, an update on the coalition. We have over 40 member organisations working almost all around the world, from Australia to Zimbabwe. Our website is constantly updated with the latest scientific information on menstrual cups, and we hope it's the go-to place for anyone interested in them. So the agenda is now being put on the chat box if you would like to look at it. Today we have 10 speakers and 3 videos to show you, spanning the world from Canada in the west to India in the east. There are talks by individuals representing their organisations. And the Menstrual Cup Coalition doesn't necessarily endorse every opinion. And the coalition does not promote any particular brand of cup. We'll be recording the summit so that we can draft a report for the website, which will include links to relevant websites and articles. This summit is planned to last about 90 minutes, and halfway through we'll have a 5-minute break. We've never done this before, so please be patient if we have any problems with internet connections. Please feel free to raise questions in the question box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer them all at the end of the talks. This summit is about menstrual cups and periods, the blood that comes out of people's vaginas every month that causes so much shame and embarrassment. So put aside your shame, thank you for attending, and we hope that you find this useful. We shall start with Rollo Kaduri, Head of Reproductive Health Practice for Mannion Daniels, who are based in Britain, Cyprus, Kenya, and Nigeria. This time last year, we met Mannion Daniels at the Women Deliver conference in Vancouver. Now, Rollo Kaduri, who is in England, will tell us about how and why Mannion Daniels support the Menstrual Cup Coalition. Rollo, over to you.
Thank you so much, Janie. And it's wonderful to be part of the Menstrual Cup Summit and part of the Menstrual Cup Coalition. I think we're a very new member from Mannion Daniels. Hello, everybody. I'm Rolla, and I'm talking to you from sunny Somerset today in the UK, with colleagues joining also from our Nairobi office and our Cyprus office, Mara, who's been the one organising this with Janie. And thank you very much, Mara, for all of that. Yes, we did meet Janie a year ago, and I had this down. We had already been working on menstrual health at Mannion Daniels. We are a health and social development consultancy company, and we're very interested in issues of reproductive health. I head up the reproductive health practice there. One of the stall, and I'll talk a little bit more about Amplify Change in a minute, but our Amplify Change stall was very close to the Menstrual Cup Coalition stall, and Janie appeared wearing the most wonderful apron covered in colourful cups. And my colleague David Daniels said to me, "We've got to go talk to that woman." And I said, "Yes, we do. We really do." And I had been prompted anyway by Alethea, who I think all of you know, who is also a colleague. And we were really inspired by the coalition. I think many of the issues that come behind all our enthusiasm for cups are very shared. So we work on gender equity issues, and it's really important to talk about bodies, stigma and shame, blood and vaginas, and sexual and reproductive health and rights for us. If you talk about it, you gradually break down the shame that we see everywhere. I think the issue of youth and comprehensive sexuality education and how menstrual health has to be part of that, and choice has to be part of that. So having cups there is really important, is also key to our values and ideas at Mannion Daniels. Environmental sustainability, I mean, it's a given. We are actually an ISO 14001 holder, and we do a lot of environmental work pro bono, so the cups were really appealing. I think what also impressed us about the coalition was the way, just if you look at this summit as well and the exciting agenda we have in front of us, you always put practitioners in the center and activists in the center, and that's very much what we do as well at Mannion Daniels. In fact, the picture that I have up on the screen, I'm sorry it's poor quality, but that's World Water Week in Stockholm, where for 2 years in a row we have accompanied one of our grantees, that's Safia Nalulu Joki, who's an MP from Uganda, and she's a disability activist. And she's also very pro-reproductive health and rights, and spoke very much about periods and how women living with disabilities actually deal with their periods. So that approach was very much consistent with our approach. And I think lastly, the CUP Coalition was very interesting for us because of our work at Amplify Change. So at Mannion Daniels, we co-manage Amplify Change, which is a very large fund that supports activists civil society activists who actually advocate for sexual and reproductive health and rights. And so my colleague Alethea after this will talk a little bit about the menstrual health portfolio there. But just to kind of finish on the note that thank you, Janie, for giving us all this space. And I know the drive behind the coalition. It's been a pleasure to work with you on behalf of Mannion Daniels, my colleagues, Mara and myself, and we're very excited and proud to be a member. Now over to Alethea, and I'll turn my video off.
Thank you, Rola. Now we have Alethea Osborne, Gender and Social Development Specialist for Mannion Daniels, who is speaking from Edinburgh in Scotland on the Amplify Change menstrual health portfolio. Alethea.
Hi, thanks. And it's so great to see lots of you. And I echo Janie in the fact that in some ways doing this virtually means that so many more people can be connected, and what a nice thing that is. So I'm aware of time, so I'll jump straight in. As Rolla mentioned, Amplify Change is one of the funds that Mannion Daniels looks after. And it covers sexual and reproductive health quite broadly, but one of the things that they've really focused on since the beginning of 2018, and a lot of my work with them has been over, is their menstrual health portfolio. This started with quite a small idea about how they could include it, how they could promote it amongst their grant holders. And I think one of the most gratifying and reassuring things has been that initially when we were designing the grant round, we hoped that we'd get maybe 100 or 200 applications, which would be focused around menstrual health. And that over time, we've now had over 2,000 applications that have specifically mentioned menstrual health. So that's not including others where they have menstrual health included within a broader focus on reproductive health or other issues. So within those, we've funded nearly 70. There's 33 of them that are live at the moment. To give that a sense of money and geographical sense, it's nearly 3 million euros, and it's over 26 countries, which are across sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Now, I think what's interesting is that there's a sense of menstrual health that is quite universal. I think for anyone that's had a period, there's a shared understanding in some ways, but at the same time, it's contextually very, very different. And the thing that Amplify Change really focuses on, as Rolla mentioned, was lifting the voices of activists and really helping them engage in advocacy systems to bring about sustainable long-term change. So the majority of these grants are quite small and quite short-term. They're often even only 1 year and about 40,000 euros. But so the idea is not that they're going to be the fix. It's the fact that they're going to start that conversation a lot of the time. And the way I sort of think of menstrual health is you have the software and you have the hardware. And I'm aware for most of you, this is, you're aware, but maybe it's worth quickly repeating. And just to give examples within the things that we've supported. So when we think about advocacy for the software, it's in things like including that menstrual health is on curriculums. It's including that teachers know then actually how to teach that they feel comfortable talking about the topic, that they can answer questions. It's ensuring that when new buildings are being built, that the toilets aren't just girl-friendly, they're period-friendly. And that going through into communities where perhaps people aren't in school. Is that conversation happening? How can we break down stigma? How can we connect and include range of stakeholders, tribal leaders, religious leaders, men and boys, so we're really trying to support those grassroots organizations. And the other side of that is, as we know with menstrual health, and why particularly in the CUP Coalition we're all very aware, is the sort of hardware element. So that's product choice, that's disposal systems, that's toilets. And again, Amplify Change will never fund programs to build those things directly. It's more to do with making people have the power and the voice to get those accountable to provide them themselves. So whether that's local governments, that's schools, that's workplaces, what it might be. So to just give a quick example of some of the range, and honestly, there are so many, and I could go on, but Janie's strict with the timing, so I won't. To give an example, we have Bangladesh. We have a small advocacy project there where they're working with local authorities to make sure that when they're designing toilets and water facilities, as I say, they're not just girl friendly, they're period friendly, and they also account for people with disabilities and their needs. In South Sudan, we've got a project which is really small, grassroots, in communities where a lot of people haven't really managed to go to school because of not being able to reach or because of conflict and displacement. And it's having those really small community dialogue conversations, trying to, as Roland mentioned, break down those taboos. So it's really, we hope, the start of bigger things. And then another example, which I think is interesting, is in Angola. There's a project there that's supporting teacher training colleges, because as I mentioned, you can have the best curriculum, you can have the best information. If you're not comfortable talking about it and answering questions on it, it doesn't necessarily work. As we know, Janie can walk around with her cups, and that sets a tone of the fact that we are able to ask questions. So it's trying to equip teachers with that skill. I would say, though, that one of the things that we're really trying to push for is to go beyond. There was initial huge amount of interest, and understandably so, in adolescent girls and schools, and over half of the applications we've ever had focus on that. But as far as I'm aware, I didn't stop having a period when I left school. It's still something that goes on in life. It's still something that needs to be talked about. So up to this point, though, less than 1% of our applications has focused on menopause or fertility, despite us actually mentioning it in our call for grantees. So that's something we're still trying to build up a bit and get more data and understanding of. We're also trying to push beyond just the school setting, think about workplaces, individuals who are out of school. We have a few small grants that work in displaced or marginalized refugee settings. There's one that works in prisons, but trying to be aware of the fact that we're reaching the biggest audience and often the hardest to reach. And then, as Roland mentioned, the sustainability aspect. That's both in the terms of the fact that a lot of these grants are short-term, and that comes with their own issues. And so it's how do you ensure that those grants are still in a position to start the conversation, whether that's strengthening the organization's ability to carry that on, but also it does include a conversation around products, which is obviously partly why we're attached to the CUP Coalition. And we would never tell a grantee exactly what product they must be using, but it's making sure that choice and conversation is there. It's making sure that they're aware. Have they thought about the fact that, yes, you can give a pad to a girl today, what does she do next month, let alone in 5 years' time? And ensuring that that also goes through to disposal and waste systems. So there's lots more I could touch on, and I'm very happy to take questions later on, but I'll just leave it there for now and hope that that was a helpful overview of some of Amplify Change's menstrual health work, at least. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Alicia. That was fascinating. Next, we have a new film called Ayanda's Periods, directed and edited by award-winning filmmaker Lauren Anders Brown. Lauren is currently in Bermuda, where she went for a weekend just before lockdown and has since got married there. She edited this film while on her extended honeymoon.
I'm Ayanda Dlamini. I'm 23 years old. I live in Swaziland, which is now, we call it Eswatini. And I live in a small village called Bagenkosi. Sanitary pads have different sizes. So when I don't have money, I usually buy the small one because it's much cheap. And then the small one is not good because when I bleed a lot, I can bloat myself. So it gives me a worry because I even be worried when I'm in a combi and then put that small pad, and then I'll be worried to stand up because you can see when you stand up, you can see maybe I bloated myself, and then the other people will just be discriminating me. because some of them, they just know my status.
You are now the proud owner of a menstrual cup. When do you think the menstrual cup was created?
Oh,
How old do you think it is?
I don't know. I think 6 months ago.
Okay. What would you say if I told you it was made in the 1930s?
No ways! 1930s!
And we've been waiting this long for it to actually be properly educated and distributed to us.
No ways. I just learned about this 2 days ago. No ways. That's so bad, and I feel ashamed of myself. I will be using this for a long time ago, and now I'm just no.
Why we need more access and education when it comes to menstruation.
We really need more access. We really need more access and education about menstruation and everything. Oh, I'm just ashamed of myself, knowing it's from 90 days. No ways.
No shame.
I'm ashamed.
No shame.
I am ashamed.
Thank you, Lauren. That was fascinating, and what a lovely woman Ayanda is. The next section is on global updates, and we begin with Professor Penelope Phillips-Howard of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine in Britain. Penny is currently in the Netherlands and will talk about the latest research in Kenya on the costs and benefits of using cups compared to pads. Penny.
Thanks so much, Janie, and hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So we're the research arm of many other people involved with research around the world, and we have been involved with research on cups since about 2011, 2012. We have noticed that there's very little studies conducted on cost effect and cost benefit of cups, pads, and other products. So what we did was we decided to use data that we had generated from a pilot study. And this study was conducted in Western Kenya, and other papers have been published on it, which you may have read. So this was in schoolgirls in primary schools in Western Kenya. What we did was we collected data on costs and on the effects of menstrual cups, sanitary pads, and among girls using usual practice, whatever they normally use, in 30 primary schools. And for the costs, what we did was we collected information on the materials used, on the education involved with puberty education for all the girls across the different arms, whether they use cups, pads, or usual. And then the training that was needed, more training was needed for the girls in the menstrual cup group compared with, say, sanitary pads and usual practice. And then gathered information on soap, wash, hygiene, and how much it was going to cost them to actually maintain hygiene. For example, firewood for lighting the stove, for boiling cups, other cleaning materials. And then environmental costs for disposing pads, for example, in the community. At the same time, we had collected information on girls' health over the course of the study, which was about 1 year. On average, we followed up girls for 10 months. We were looking at sexually transmitted infections, bacterial vaginosis. We did look at psychosocial, but the information on that wasn't as strong following them up over time. So we weren't able to look at the cost benefit and cost effect on psychosocial health. And then on education, and that was mainly on absence. I'll discuss that one in a little bit, because it's always quite difficult to measure absence. And then absence was used as a proxy to indicate potential for employment of girls moving into adulthood, their wages over their lifetime. So we compared the costs and the effects between menstrual cups and pads, taking usual practice into account. So we averaged the costs over 1,000 girls, even though there are a smaller number of girls in the study. And what we found was, for 1,000 girls for 1 year, the use of the menstrual cup for all the costs involved was about $2,700. And for using sanitary pads, and they were given 2 packs of sanitary pads every month, that was about $22,000 a year. Then we also looked at the costs to avert infections, and these were sexually transmitted infections and bacterial vaginosis. And there was some very fancy footwork from the health economists on disability adjusted life year, which separately, if you're interested, you can email me and email the health economists and gather more information for your interests. So for averting infections in the cups, it was $2,000. And for the pads, it was $47,000. And one of the reasons was that there was much more effect of cups on bacterial vaginosis compared with pads. And then we looked at the absence data, and we were only able to evaluate absence in the sanitary pad group. One of the reasons being was that people immediately use pads, whereas the cups takes a few months to get used to, and therefore the absence data on girls using cups wasn't as forthcoming as that in sanitary pads. So the conclusions from our study was this was very much a first attempt. The health economists used very fancy calculations. Those calculations are very robust. So the data from the field were the least robust data, and the actual statistical analysis was very robust. So we're looking forward to using our trial data as we move forward over time, and opening up the opportunity for other people to use their data to do more analyses on different projects. The cups were more cost effective than the pads, as you can see from the above data. But exploring data around absence and then extrapolating this to employment and to wages over 40 years skewed the data in favor of pads in relation to employment and wages. So we are encouraged also to look at different forms of school attendance to try and gather data on that, not just on absence data. So there are many limitations to our study. We're very aware of that. It was a small pilot sample. It was in primary school girls. It was limited to a short follow-up. So some girls were only followed for a very short time, only just got used to the cups. And with that slow uptake of cups, it was disadvantaged compared with sanitary pad use. Again, as I said, we extrapolated absence to actual lost schooling and then used that for the employment calculations. And then we weren't able to use our psychosocial data, and we would like to move forward and do that on other studies and link up with you all to see how we could further doing cost effectiveness and cost benefit studies. So it was a joy to work with the health economists, and it was a fast learning curve for all of us. And it just goes to show that you're never too old to learn new tricks. And we're really excited to move forward with all of you on expanding this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. That was fascinating, and I'm sure that you're going to build on those really positive results with your high level of research and analysis.
Thanks.
Next, we have Jennifer Rubley, who is the Research and Monitoring and Evaluation Coordinator for FEM International, who works in Tanzania. She's in Canada today and we'll talk about how important country rules are for successful menstrual cup projects. Jennifer.
Thank you, Janie. Hi, everyone. As Janie mentioned, I'm Jen with FEM International. We're a menstrual health NGO in East Africa, and we've been running menstrual cup programming for about 8 years. So I just want to say we're not a manufacturer, and to that end, I'm not an expert on approaching ministries to begin the process of developing standards, obtaining approvals within a country. There are others who've done that, for example, Lunette Cup in Tanzania, Ruby Cup has a lot of experience in Kenya. The list goes on. And so I'm also going to point out that I'm speaking specifically from the point of view of an NGO and how that works for us, how that looks for us. There's a little bit of a researcher's perspective as well, although we just heard from Penny, so not even going to try to top that in any way, shape, or form. So when I talk about standards and approvals, I mean very much a national board or committee. For example, in the States you have the FDA, that has become a fairly global benchmark, or in Tanzania you have the Food and Drug Authority. And basically this is a board that sets product and safety requirements, such as thickness of the material, the type or grade of material, volume, that sort of thing. Some governments are very happy to take recommendations from other governments and previously existing standards, whilst other countries want to go it on their own from scratch. Regardless of that, they typically all want research and data, preferably from their own country, which becomes problematic, on feasibility, safety, acceptability, these sorts of things. And that can be very tricky because whilst there is some incredible research out there, hello Penny, there are very few countries represented, unfortunately. So once those national standards have been set, typically each new company needs to go through the process on their own for its products of getting that little stamp to say, yay, we've passed, this is exciting. In some countries, that's quite easy once the first cup has gone through, whilst in others, it becomes even more of a process despite there actually being the systems in place. As an NGO who's not making a profit or selling or anything, in most countries you can actually legally import cups even if the country has never heard of them or doesn't have standards. You get a letter or a certificate or something like that from both local government and the manufacturer. And this is what FEM did for years with no problems in both Kenya and Tanzania. If you're looking to sell, obviously that's a completely different process. And there are a few cup manufacturers on here, so talk to them. It's also important to emphasize that each country is very different, and to do your research and find out how it works in your country of operation. There may or may not be taxes, customs, other quote unquote types of payments involved, which depending on the NGO or the project may or may not actually be feasible in terms of the finances involved, the hassle, the time commitment, etc. For example, in Tanzania, setting standards has made it very, pretty much impossible to import cups that have not already gone through the long and tedious process of obtaining approvals. So for Tanzania, we now only work with the cup companies that have gotten that approval in Tanzania. For research, you can typically get a special import type of permit once you have ethics approval, but that's a whole different topic. The biggest emphasis and the most important thing when doing anything with cups is to do it right. And I cannot emphasize this enough. And what I mean by that is going with the country rules and regulations. So whether it's introducing cups to a country for the first time, working with cups in a country that's familiar and has standards in place, if you don't take the time and effort and do your due diligence, find out what's already going on, who's already working with cups, what has already been done, what is not known, what do people want. If you don't take the time to go through those processes, what happens is it jeopardizes cups for everyone else. So what this means is very much going through the legal and government channels, whatever those may be, getting approvals, paying taxes, setting standards, reporting, stakeholder involvement and engagement, especially government stakeholder, but also health, community and religious leaders, research and feedback, all of these things. And as an NGO, especially a smaller one, that can sometimes make things actually impossible, which sucks. But the biggest thing is if you don't go through these channels and processes, it becomes a bigger issue, and it can fuck up cups for everybody in that country for the foreseeable future, which is obviously not what we want. So I could go on, obviously, but I'll end it here. If anyone wants to talk any further or has any questions, please get in touch. And thanks for listening, folks.
Thank you, Jen. That was really interesting. You're so right, because we could all go backwards if we're not careful. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of us in different ways, not least people who have periods. Andishe Yahinga, chair of the knowledge management team for WOMENA, will talk about their research into this in Uganda. Andishe is talking to us from Iran. Andy.
Many thanks, Jenny, for the introduction. I'm very delighted to be here today. From the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, WOMENA has been developing and updating its resources. One of the first actions in March was to develop a fact sheet on menstruation around the world. What are the challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown? As more information came in, it was updated in April and then again in May. For example, we noted the panic buying of hygiene products, such as toilet paper, including panic buying of menstrual products. There was an increase in gender-based violence and domestic obstacles for women to buy menstrual products. Food shortages in Uganda, which lead to menstrual irregularity, were noted, and the advantages of menstrual cups, since they require little water. At the end of May, in Uganda, WOMENA and several partners conducted a rapid assessment by telephone among 65 people in 6 districts. 35% of respondents reported changes in their menstruation, with more menstrual pain, infrequent menstrual period, changes in amount of bleeding, high stress levels, and low food intake. 34% of respondents had difficulty buying menstrual products due to loss of household income. Menstrual cup users were more positive. They liked the menstrual cup because it saves money, uses less water for cleaning, and it reduces the stress of buying menstrual products or asking someone for the money. One respondent said, "Mobility isn't easy and shops are closed, so menstrual cups have been of great impact on us." To facilitate outreach, WOMENA has improved its virtual online training resources. For example, we produced a video on how to cope with stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. WOMENA is contributing menstrual information to radio shows, especially on Menstrual Hygiene Day, both in Uganda and globally. We are also developing a plan to train midwives about how to use and educate their clients about menstrual cups. The pandemic and lockdown has certainly increased interest in menstrual cups. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Andy. That was really interesting. And now we have Alfred Mooley, the Regional Programme Manager in East Africa for Ruby Cups. And Alfred will be talking about how they've adapted to the pandemic. Alfred.
Thank you so much, Jenny. So as Jenny mentioned, I'm Alfred with the Ruby Cup team based in Nairobi, Kenya. Ruby Cup is a menstrual cup company with an inbuilt buy one promise on every cup we sell. So what that ideally means is that for every cup we sell, we donate that to someone in need. And we do this through partners. We currently have 22 partners spread across 12 countries in 3 continents. And every donation is also paired with a reproductive health education, a mentorship program, and a sustainability pathway through what we call sustained support. And this means that someone in that community is the one who is going to do the trainings, and support the girls, the women, and the other menstruators that we do engage. So what exactly changed after that? For you to understand that, I'll take you to the picture on the left. So that's my colleague Vanessa. She's doing a follow-up in northeastern Kenya, and that's the regular setup that we'd find in most of our programs. She will sit with the women in this case and discuss the challenges they faced. And we do this on 3 occasions. So 6 weeks after distribution, 6 months after distribution, and 1 year after distribution. So with the new regulations, we are obviously not able to do that. So our partners were quite innovative. They did door-to-door follow-ups, as you can see on the second slide on your right. So they did door-to-door distributions and also follow-ups. That was in Kenya and in South Sudan. In Kenya with youth-led organizations, and in South Sudan with one of our partners across. The other thing we then did was we changed a little bit our target group, because then COVID also brings new groups of people that become again vulnerable because of that, whether it's the low income groups who have lost jobs, or their incomes has reduced, or even in our case, health workers. They now had to work long shifts. We got reports of health workers who were quite uncomfortable with protective clothing that was prohibitive, that would make bathroom breaks quite difficult. And so we started donating caps to health workers in Europe initially, and we're also doing that now in Kenya. So we've done donations of around 1,087 in countries such as Poland, Israel, Hungary, Germany, Croatia, among others. So the one thing we're learning from the follow-ups is that, yes, it's takes more time to do the door-to-door follow-up, but it's really cool because you get more time with the girls or the women, and it's also in-depth discussions, and it works very well for those who are quiet, or rather those who are not open to discussing in groups. And obviously that's very important because there are group dynamics everywhere. So yeah, I'm happy to take in questions and share more information after this or during the webinar.
Thank you, Alfred. That's really interesting to see how quickly that you've adapted to the new situation. Megan Mukuria is the founder of Zana Africa and will now share with us some results from the NIA project and how lessons from it can further the work of menstrual cups in Kenya, where she lives. Megan.
Thanks, Janie, and hi, everyone. Zana Africa is both a nonprofit and a social business, and we ran a 2-year program that had 25 sessions in a facilitated curriculum with 5 paired magazines over 2 years, 18 months, in a randomized control trial that was in partnership with big organizations like Menstrual and Plan International, over 140 schools in Kilifi with baseline, midline, and endline. So we followed 3,500 class 7 students for 2 years through secondary school enrollment. So this was a longitudinal study to look at the individual and combined impacts of essentially comprehensive sexuality education in story-based format with and without sanitary pads. And we use sanitary pads to ensure the consistency of the intervention. So this was not a menstrual cup project, but it was a menstruation related project. So we improved the program improved measured social gender norms for adolescence and marriage, all 3 gender norms that are tested, heteronormativity, norms in marriage, and there's one other one that I'm blanking on. Improved reproductive health knowledge, so knowledge of pregnancy, knowledge of STDs, and spontaneous ability to name at least one modern contraceptive. And we helped improve girls with their agency and self-determination, also in measurable ways. And their period management improved over 25 percentage points. So there weren't any changes in educational outcomes So attendance, performance, or attending secondary school, 65% of students who could not attend secondary school said that just a lack of school fees was the #1 problem for students. So there's some exciting applications for this. It's a program, it's a curriculum that can be scaled through any organizations working with teens, including a really great way to give full health rights and comprehensive sexuality education to girls in a way that resonates deeply with conservative communities in different ways. These were very accepted by both conservative Muslim and conservative Christian communities on the coast in Kenya. And as CUPS can take some time for students to get used to it or adults to get used to it, the 25 sessions can be in 6 months or 18 months accordingly. So we're scaling now through different entities. And if anybody's interested in that, we'd be delighted to do a trainers of trainers. There's a lot of government traction as well. The Teachers Service Commission, which is the teachers union, is very interested in the program and in the ability it had to help teachers themselves overcome menstrual stigma and other challenges of being able to talk in a rights-based framework with girls and work through issues themselves, including domestic violence. And the Office of the President wants to include it in the new government curriculum. So Manny and Daniels, I'll be very interested to talk to you all about the Angola teacher training colleges that you're doing. And the State Department of Gender wants to do a menstrual cups project in COVID-19 to deliver cups and to do a joint learning project with a view to helping Kenya Bureau of Standards approval. As was noted earlier, it's very difficult often to have commercial sales standards for cups across the continent, but here in Kenya too, which is a key barrier to uptake. Our focus is always on large scale, which includes scaling dignity through choice through the market. So while we only sell menstrual pads right now, we are looking to do menstrual cups, but the cups is a key barrier. So we're very excited that many different components of the government are very interested in not only comprehensive sexuality education, but anchored in menstrual health and looking at diversity of products to truly give dignity through choice.
Thank you, Alethea. Sorry, Megan. Lots of opportunities there for collaboration between different members of the Menstrual Cup Coalition. I think that's great. So this section of the summit is called Media and Marketing, and we shall start by showing you a video which, due to its lively approach, has gone viral on the internet.
I hate the environment, just hate it. And that's why I love pads. Because I just love the feeling of blood gushing down when I get up from my seat. That fear of leaking through pads, blooding the clothes in the entire office? Lovely. Choosing what to wear becomes so simple. Half of my wardrobe? I can't even consider. Exercise, swimming, trips, parties, all that. Good life stuff. Pads give you the perfect excuse to skip all of that. Those trips to the judging chemist every month. Paying that woman's tax for 40 rashy years. Fuck it. I hate pads. Uncomfortable, irritating, unhygienic, costly, life-limiting, rash-causing, leaky and sleep-stealy pads. And that's why the first world doesn't use them, but we still do. Why? Habit. Mothers, their habits, and then some more lame, unfounded excuses. So either we torture ourselves for 40 years of these bloody pads and their glossy ads, or we put a period to such a period life. Stop being down with pads and start being done with them. Rise up with the Sirona Cup. Yes, the same company that got us Peabody now brings us their menstrual cup, making our periods feel like... what period? Made with FDA-approved cushiony silicone, the Sirona Cup is already the best-selling menstrual cup online with a super high rating. Hold it like this and put it in. Once inside, the cup will hold for 8 to 10 hours. No leak, no rash, no stain, and super comfortable days and nights. So that you can wear whatever you want, go wherever you want, and do whatever you want. Take it out, empty, wash, put it back in, and live free again. One cup will last you a decade, which means less money, effort, and inconvenience. And unlike the toxic non-biodegradable pads, the Sirona cups are environmentally responsible. Yeah, it'll take you a couple of cycles to get used to, but it will save you 40 years of bad pad days. So girls, enough of being down with pads. It's time to be done with pads and rise up with the Sirona cup. Get yours now. Well, and if someone says, what if it gets stuck? Girls, please remember, if you can push babies out of our vaginas, this is nothing. Just saying.
And I think that advertisement applies to all cups, really. So, still in India, we now have Dr. Deeksha Chadha, who is the Director of the Medical Research for Sirona Cups. And she's going to talk to us from India about her experience of marketing cups. Deeksha.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jenny, for the introduction. Everybody, so just like you saw in the video, we are here with Sirona Cups. Sirona basically is a company that works towards solving those intimate hygiene or intimate health problems for women that are not addressed enough or are not talked about enough. With Sirona Cups, we are trying to bring about a sustainable menstruation revolution in the country. And while we try to market menstrual cups in India, we face certain challenges that I'm going to be talking about. So the first challenge that we have faced is, fixed behavior. Most women in India, they are quite used to wearing pads or clothes, and they resist this change, especially because most of the public health programs, the government and the non-profit sector provide free pads to a lot of women in rural areas. And that also because pads become easily accessible to them, they resist the change to a sustainable solution, which is of cups. So how we tackle this behavior is through a strategy known as behavior change communication. This strategy basically means it states that people usually follow a fixed behavior because they are not sufficiently aware of how this behavior can be harmful. So we take them through a process of becoming more aware about the harmful impacts of pads, as you have seen in the video. And once they become concerned about both the cost effect of having to buy pads, the rashes that they cause, the environmental damage that they cause, they are more open to trial of a new behavior, which is using a menstrual cup. And we also give them an environment which helps them in adopting to these cups by using various training techniques, certain training methods, our community partners who follow up with women who are now suddenly making the switch from pad or cloth to cups, so that if they have any issues or problems, we try to troubleshoot these issues. And once these issues are solved for them, they usually adopt this new behavior and retain this new behavior. And not just that, they even begin to advocate cups to other women. So they become spokeswomen for changing this behavior themselves. The second problem or challenge that we have faced is, the cultural myths. Among so many myths surrounding periods, from periods blood being impure, the ones that, really are a barrier towards cups is the issue about virginity. A lot of women still believe that wearing a cup will take away their virginity, and also that wearing a cup leads to vaginal infections, including TSS. So how we try to solve this is by using a combination of logic and proper awareness techniques and education, and of course informing women that virginity is it's just an idea. It's not something that can be taken away from cups or anything else. Third challenge is the learning curve that comes with the cup. You cannot just buy cups or just distribute cups among women and expect them to start using them without any training, especially in the lower socioeconomic strata. So like I said, again, with the training that gets solved. So things that have been extremely helpful, our cups are now, we have sold 3 lakh plus cups in the country. Things that have been helpful is, of course, the awareness program that Janie really wanted me to show you, this anatomical model. So this is actually a model which I used to use in medical college. This was used to teach us how to insert a copper T. So we use the exact same model because this is a life-size model. Unlike the other rubber silicone models, this actually shows that vagina is curved, or it's not a straight tunnel. It follows a curved angle, and we demonstrate how to use a menstrual cup using this anatomical model. This also helps women in understanding the proportion and size of their womb and what their body looks like inside. So this anatomical model has been extremely useful for us. Second, of course, we have a very supportive and expert customer care helpline, which helps women. They can simply call in, or they can, email to us, or we even have an ask for 3 to 5 month follow-up period for all our programs. We try to keep the cost of cups low. They are priced in the market at £4, and through our social projects, we usually do them at £2. So the cups become very affordable to women, and they are willing to try it. Of course, we have online sale in India because there is now smooth access to internet. Even rural areas and tier 3 towns have access to internet, and therefore online supply and distribution channel has been really helpful in taking cups to remotest parts of the country. Then, of course, we have another thing which has helped Sirona, as opposed to other brands in the country, is having a support system in terms of infection prevention. So this really eases minds of people. This is a simple steam sterilizer. It just takes 1 teaspoon of water, and it is electronically connected. We are also looking at a battery operated version. We simply put the cup upside down, close it, and just press the button, and the steam will sterilize the cup in 2 minutes. Another thing that we have is a cup wash, which again is a helpful solution and has been helping us in marketing our cups because it comes with accessories. The way forward that we see in India is, of course, nothing can happen without involvement of government and policy change. Therefore, we have been working with government stakeholders to try to include menstrual cup in the menstrual health basket and making cups freely available in schools and communities. We are also conducting training sessions for health workers, including doctors. A lot of doctors in India are also not aware about menstrual cups. So we recently held a green menstruation drive in which 8,000 doctors took an oath that they will convert to menstrual cups this year. We are also trying to increase the reach of our training programs, especially with the COVID. Initially, we could not conduct any programs in the first month, but now, again, using the same online channels and our apps, we are now taking our training to the remotest parts of the country and also across the border. So that's it from me, Janie. I hope this was helpful, and sorry for crossing the time.
Thank you very much, Diksha. That was fascinating. 8,000 doctors converted is amazing. Think of all the patients that they have. Only last month, I met a female consultant gynecologist in Britain who had never seen a cup, and she was quite young too. So there are often stories in the media about cups, many of them not true or based on myths. Siri Tellier is the Senior Reproductive Health Advisor to Womena, who work in Uganda. Siri is going to tell us about their work from her home in Denmark. Siri.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you see me?
No.
I can't yet, but anyway, there we are. It keeps on saying Mary Lips. Okay, doesn't seem to work. Anyway, never mind, you can hear me. Thank you very much, Janie. Thank you for inviting us. And indeed, as you were saying, menstrual cups seem to generate a lot of excitement in the media headlines. And for example, you will have headlines that more or less say that menstrual cups cause toxic shock syndrome, that they cause your IUD to fall out, IUCD, I know it's called that. They cause your uterus to fall out, they cause your hymen to shatter, as many of you have also been talking about. And in my experience over the last few years, many of these headlines, it's not just a one time, they come up repeatedly. It's the same stories. Sometimes they fall asleep for a while, but then they wake up again. And some are anecdotal, nothing wrong with anecdotes, by the way, but quite a number of them are based on exaggerating or misinterpreting academic articles. So what should we do? So as always, no one size fits all, as it were. In Womena, our first priority is not to counter media. It's that we take the everyday safety of our beneficiaries very seriously. That is one reason we emphasize being evidence-based. So we don't just dismiss scary headlines offhand as myths. I don't like to use the word myths, but assess them, especially if they claim to be science-based. And we try to see them actually as in a positive way as a kind of quality control and useful information on people's concerns rather than stupid media. And since the scares are repeated, we can prepare. And since they often fall asleep again, we shouldn't overreact. And one of the things that depends on a lot, of course, is the time period, the time available. So if you have a couple of years, the best solution is to have an academic review, like the ones that, the extremely useful ones that Penny is putting out. But you don't always have that much time. So then if you have a medium term, in terms of months, for example, what we put out are actually what we call frequently asked questions. I don't even like to use the word fact sheets because fact sounds a little bit arrogant that you have the facts. It's more like questions that are being asked. And so we actually have been reviewing them internally. We have medical advisors, we have survey advisors. And recently, very nicely, we also have reviews by the coalition, people from the coalition, including Penny and including Jane. We're very happy to have that. And so they are peer-reviewed in the sort of quotation marks, and they go up on the coalition website. The coalition asked us to put them up there a year and a half ago, so it's up there. So please check them out, and I'll put later on in the chat what the website is. But what about short term, in days? And I've worked mostly on policy and program the last 50 years, and sometimes things come up where you need an answer now. And let me give you examples. Sometimes our colleagues in Uganda ask us urgently, and they may have to respond to the government concerns about local media, but they're also donors who are very excited about something they read in the news in their own countries, but then they apply it in Uganda. So let me give you a recent example. We've done several of these. There's something on toxic shock syndrome. There's something on the hymen, etc. I do hope, Diksha, that I would love for you to read them and see what you think about them. But let me give you a recent example. It is just on IUDs, IUCDs, but it's a recent one. Several years ago, Womena's president asked us to assess the frequent statements in mostly first world media that using a menstrual cup will make your IUCD fall out. So we produced our first FAQ, and our findings were, am I still on, by the way, because my computer just went down? No, we are on. Okay.
Yeah, you're on.
So we found, okay, good. It's just that the whole thing went down. Anyway, so number one, yes, actually, IUDs do fall out. But the thing is that they do so even if you're not wearing a cup. That's a good thing to know. And at the time, there was very little evidence of any additional risk for cup users. We also looked beyond the academic literature. For example, what do the national health authorities, in this case in Denmark, recommend that cup users should do? And they say they should be cautioned about how to use a cup, but did not suggest to stop using them. And then a month ago, we saw a posting on a blog, actually in Britain, I think it comes from Britain, Menstrual Cup, a network by a British woman whose doctor said she must stop using the cup now, since she was using an IUD, and it would make a new study had come up that showed it would make her IUD fall out. So she asked her co-bloggers for advice. So Andy, who just spoke to you earlier on, found the article, which turned out to be only an abstract. I was surprised by that you can actually base it on an abstract. Andy wrote the authors who said the full article had not yet been completed. And the abstract confirmed that IUDs do fall out by themselves, but it actually found a somewhat elevated risk for cup users, so that's important for us to know. It adds to the evidence base. It did not suggest, however, that women should stop using cups, just that they should be cautioned, so much the same that we had found. So we posted our FAQ on the blog along with our own findings. Clearly, the doctor had exaggerated, and we briefed our own staff, and we're following up with the authors, but we don't plan to do anything more because it's still a pretty low profile thing. So our question is to you, is this of any help to you? We would love to have a feedback on the FAQs, but also on these shorter term, quick responses that we were talking about. Thank you very much. That's within the 5 minutes, I think.
Thank you, Siri. Absolutely. This is just the sort of thing that the Menstrual Cup Coalition can work together to put out the facts and get rid of all the myths. So, social media is a growing trend, especially for young people who want to know how to deal with their periods. Ebi Weine is the founder of Grace Cups in Kenya and uses social media to destigmatize periods and promote the wonders of cups. We begin with a short video she made 2 days ago for Instagram when her period began. This video is a lot more intimate than those we've watched so far.
Anyways, let me take out the cup. It has served me really well. I'm usually very proud of this cup. No leakage, nothing, didn't feel anything. Let's see. Wow. Wow, guys. Wow. It's actually a lot, yeah? It's actually a lot. Look at that. Look at that. Ni mingi, yeah? I guess today's official day 1, so, or maybe day 2. I don't know if this, like I said, I don't know if this is day 1 or day 2, because yesterday it wasn't that, it was just a bit of spotting, but today, yes. And I'm really happy. I'm really happy that there was no leakage, there was nothing of that sort. I'm telling you guys, I'm telling you for real, not because I'm selling a cup. You can go buy your cup anywhere else you want. Please buy from the Grace Cup, but you can buy it anywhere else you want. But a cup changes your life. Nah, this is not just some plug, this is for real. A cup, this thing, this tiny thing right here, it will change your life, for real.
Thank you, Ebi. Wasn't that powerful over there in Nairobi? You show it how it is. That was a very brave video showing the period you're actually having right now. So tell us about how you use social media.
Hello, everyone. Just to double check, can you hear me, Jenny?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My name is Ebi Weime. I am the founder of the Grace Cup. We were established in 2017, so we've been around for 3 years. We deal with reusable period products, that is menstrual cups and cloth pads. I'm just going to touch on a few things that you see on your screen right now. These are like the main building blocks when I'm preparing content for my social media. My main socials are Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube in that order. I'm not really on Twitter, but Instagram has really been working well for the Grace Cup. So the first picture that you see over there is of blood. So when I started the Grace Cup, there was lots of questions on, we can see it, like you tell us this is how it's used, but we really want someone to actually show us, like not just talk about it and show us pictures and use food color to show the colors. Could we have someone who's actually using a cup? So that's what gave me the idea of actually documenting my period and showing that this is actually a very practical thing. So every month when I have a period, I usually make content both for YouTube and for Instagram, just showing just how practical a cup can be. So I call it the shock effect, because when someone sees the cup or when someone sees someone taking out the cup, of course it's going to cause shock and it's going to generate conversation. So one of those things is to show actual blood, show an actual period, because I go with the thinking of, well, we watch movies where there's blood gushing and there are people's throats being slit and blood is coming out, but that we're comfortable with. So we should also be comfortable with just seeing a little blood in a little cup. The fact that it's coming out of my vagina doesn't mean that it should not be. And then on my next point, the next picture that you see over there is of stained underwear. So this is just an example of trying to get content that is relatable. So I'm sure most of the women here, you've at one point either stained your bed or you stained your underwear. So it's just talking about the regular problems that a normal girl or a normal woman would face, and just addressing it and just having a conversation around it. So sometimes it will be about a stained underwear, sometimes it will be a discharge, and talking about discharge and actually putting actual photos of what really happens with women and not trying to conceal everything. Then my next, the picture in the middle is of a review. So it's usually very good to also get actual reviews that you get from customers. So this is, for example, a review that we got on our Instagram. So you just take a screenshot of it and actually show show other potential clients what actual users are saying about it. The other one is also people like to see actual images or actual pictures. So have, once in a while, of course with permission, have images of actual users of your product. It really helps because people like to see people other than you who are showing, who are actual users. The next one is repost. So for those people who are familiar with Instagram, you can actually, there are apps where you can actually take content from another page and actually repost on your page. But the thing is, you have to give credit every time that you do that. So don't go steal other people's content. You can take the content if you don't have any of yours. You can take the content, but always remember to credit where you got the content from, and it really helps with making your page more, with engaging more with people. And then the other one is you need to have topics that spark conversation. So for example, the picture that you see over there is of a plant and a cup next to it. So the caption for that was about the different uses that are there for blood, which is menstrual blood. So there's a lot of argument with, is period blood waste, or can it be used for other things? So in this picture, for example, we're talking about people who use their menstrual blood in watering their gardens. So just having a picture like that, which I took in my garden actually on my period. So just having a picture like this, it really sparks conversation, and also making it more engaging. Like, would you use your period blood on your face, for example, for a facial, or watering it for your garden, or should period blood just be waste as it's meant to be? The other one is have videos and demos. So for example, at the Grace Cup, I invested a lot in dummies like this. For example, this is where the cup has gone in. It's also another dummy that I invested in. So it's good to have such dummies that will really help with demonstrating the use of the cup, where, for example, where the ovaries are, what is the vulva, how many holes do women have. So I find that such dummies really help with the promotion of the cup. I know my time is running up, so I'll just take 2 more points and say that when you're using social media, for example, Facebook and Instagram, it will only pay back when you're sponsoring your posts. So basically, you have to pay for these things. Posting alone is good, but it doesn't really help unless you actually pay for them. So it's good to actually invest in that. And in conclusion, I would want to say, remember, you're not just selling a cup, you're actually changing mindset. So you're actually an influencer. So don't just go in it thinking I'm selling a cup. Think I am changing a mindset. Thank you very much. And I'd really love to connect with all of you after this.
Thank you, Abby. That was really interesting. Can you tell us how many Instagram followers you have? Roughly?
Yes, on Instagram, I have 2,634. And in all of my social media, I have a combined 11,600.
Can you, we missed that. Maybe you need to write it down on the chat box. It sounded like a very high number.
Yes, 11,600.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
So that concludes our talks and videos. I'm sure you will agree that there's a lot of amazing work going on around the world, with great people working together and the potential for even more collaboration. We hope this summit will encourage you all to talk to each other and collaborate on more exciting menstrual cup projects. Do feel free to do it directly or through the Menstrual Cup Coalition website. And with your support, we can maintain our website as the place for correct, scientific, researched information about menstrual cups.